This show is supported by you over on Patreon. Stick around till the ad break to hear more about that, about our live episode prep, and some other cool stuff. This is Cup of Go for January 25th, 2025. Keep up to date with the important happenings in the Go community in about 15 minutes per week. I'm Shai Ahmad.
And I'm Jonathan Hall.
Ooh, sounding all nice.
I have a new microphone.
I'm glad to hear that. Long-time listeners might remember that for the last few episodes, there's the microphone arc of Jonathan ever since he left Amsterdam.
Yes.
The mic saga.
I should have just done this even before I left Amsterdam, but I don't know. I guess that was stupid.
Yeah. Mike Saga, by the way, the original name for original proposed name for The Last Dance that Michael Jordan and then I took it personally. And then someone said Zig was better than Go, and I took that personally.
No.
All right. So we have some cool stuff to talk about. We have update on last week's security release, which should be very timely because it came out literally an hour after our last episode. So it's probably the oldest news item that's literally a news item. We want to talk about GopherCon. We have some proposals we want to discuss, some discussion topics, just cool stuff. You want to get us kicked off with the new release, RC2?
Yeah, so 1.24 RC2 is out. The only thing to talk about there is that it includes all the CVEs that are also included in 1.23.5 and 1.22.11, or rather it includes the fixes for the CVEs. They didn't just decide to re-add those vulnerabilities. But yeah, it's 1.24 is coming along. So if you're not already running it in your CI pipelines, it's a good idea to add it there and report any bugs you discover.
And if you want to know what the specific CVEs are, there's one in crypto, which I don't fully understand. You have certificates with URIs, right? So a certificate has like what it certificates or where it certificates from, right?
Yeah.
If you use an IPv6 zone ID, you can bypass some constraints. Again, proving that IPv6 really nobody remembers to check. No, everybody forgot about it. I've started learning networking in 2010, which is 15 years ago. And I've been taught that, in a couple of years, we're going to run out of IP addresses and everybody's going to use IPv6. Still hasn't happened. I wouldn't worry about it too much. But because you have to implement it, it has security implications because nobody ever tests it and the format is weird. Just a general observation. In this case, certificates including URIs are not permitted anyway, so it only affects users who weren't working with the spec. So if you are using the crypto package and you're looking at certificates that have URIs in their web PKI, then you have a problem. The more interesting one is the net HTTP one, where sensitive headers are sent incorrectly. So here's a question. What site do you log into often?
Let's say GitHub.
All right, GitHub is good. Well, let me retract that statement. GitHub is a good example.
Okay.
I don't want to say GitHub is good.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So let's say you need to talk to github.com/something.
Mm-hmm.
What headers would you need to send them? In the HTTP request, I mean.
I'm assuming there's some sort of auth header. I don't know exactly how their auth works, but probably some authorization header.
So you have some non-sensitive headers, right? Like referral,
and
accept, and like these
type,
cool,
whatever.
Simple things, and authorization. So HTTP strips the sensitive headers when you follow a redirect. Let's say GitHub redirects you to some external login page.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it makes sense that it wouldn't send the authorization with the redirect, right? It should drop the sensitive headers. That's how it should work. This vulnerability basically says that if you receive a subsequent redirect, the sensitive headers get restored.
Oh, no.
So if you go to github.com and github.com redirects you to some login page /1, and then that login page goes to /login page /2, the HTTP headers get restored incorrectly. of course,
Yeah.
following a chain of redirects. On the one hand, this is a really, really cool vulnerability in the HTTP client. On the other hand, I'm like, I don't think it impacts a ton of people. Like, I don't think the severity is that high, but it's not great, right? You leak authorization header. It's like exactly the thing you don't want to do. But the thing I'm failing to, I think I understood how it works, right? You go to a.com with your authorization header, and then you redirect, a.com redirects you, and then b.com, which you got redirected to, can do another redirect and sort of drink your credentials, right?
Yeah.
But for that to actually be malicious, you have to hack into a.com and change the redirect to your site. Does that make sense as the attacker? Yeah. So hard these credentials might have got leaked to a third party site, but that third party site, someone redirected you there on purpose, and that someone already has your credentials. It's kind of hard for me to follow how you can actually perform an attack here unless you already attacked the original domain and like install something there. And if you did that, you can just grab stuff from there, right?
You would think, right.
So it's a cool vulnerability. I'm not sure what's the attack path or attack surface, if that makes sense. But it's good that it's closed. And if any of the things we said worried you, go update, because it's in Go 123.5 and Go 122.11.
And the note here says, thanks to Kyle Seeley for reporting this issue. I decided to Google him to see if he's done anything else cool about Go. And I see a rocking guitarist on the front page of Google. So I don't know if it's the same guy. I'm guessing not. But if it is the same guy, then good job, Kyle, for taking time off your Rockstar shows to do security reporting.
Hey, I play guitar. Can I do a side note? This might get edited out. I sold my guitar.
Oh,
my custom Les Paul Gibson custom shop that I had the guy's signature who finished it at the Gibson shop. It was a beautiful guitar, man. I sold it to a good guy, though.
Okay, well, that's good.
Sold it to a good guy. He seemed to like he's gonna have a lot of fun playing it, and I haven't touched it in a while. So, like sensitive headers, good things get forwarded, I guess.
Yeah. So that's it for our releases. But something else has been released lately, and that is the CFP, Call for Presentation Papers. We've had this debate before. Anyway, the CFP for GopherCon US is open now through March 3. GopherCon US will be in New York. Did I say that right? I don't know how to pick up that accent correctly. In New York this year. I'm thinking about trying to go. I've already talked to my wife about it. She's never been to New York before. How about you, Shai? What are the chances that you might be in New York in August?
August. I don't know. I'll be in California that time. But GopherCon, that's tempting. And New York is also a lot of fun.
Have you been before?
Yes, I've been as a tourist. I went to everything that's touristy. I went to the Soup Nazi. I went to Lady of Liberty. And I went talking about Kyle Seeley. Kyle, if you're still listening and you're actually the guitarist, to the best pedal shop in the world. And the same guy I told you I sold my guitar to. I sold him the two best pedals I own, effects pedals I owned as well.
Now you can't edit out the guitar bit because you referred to it again. So
yeah, it's no problem. Yeah. So no, I don't plan to. But GopherCon, that's tempting. What's on the schedule? Like, do they have a keynote or anything?
Nothing yet. It's too early. It's too early. So maybe if you want to submit a CFP.
Ooh, interesting. Oh, maybe us. Maybe we can do a Cup of Go booth at GopherCon. Just beyond the dates themselves, also important to highlight, that and there's a call for speakers. It's not only like big talks. You can submit lightning talks as well, and they'll be open in a few months, right? The lightning talks they'll only get opened on June, so you have a lot of time. There are nonprofit tickets, student tickets, startup tickets, corporate tickets. They have like tiers. They have discounts of groups. So if you want to come in a group, that works really well. And yeah, it's not super cheap.
No,
it's not a super cheap event, but the higher, the later you get your ticket, the pricier it's going to be. And it's going to, like, the current price ends on February 18th. So you don't have a lot of time to grab the like early price.
Yeah, get on it.
If you know you're going to go, buy the thing now. Cool. Looks like there are some speakers already, including Miki Tabeka, who was already on the show. Our first guest ever.
Well, if he can make it, surely you can, Shai.
Maybe.
Anyway, maybe you or I will be in New York. It'll be fun if it happens. We'll see.
You do have a lot of time to decide, but again, like I said, if you know you're going to go, until February 18th is the early price. So you don't know if you're going to go yet, right?
I don't know. I mean, it's not as far for me.
So is it a question mark?
There is a question mark involved, for sure.
There is a question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sorry, but you can't use that anymore.
I can't use it anymore.
I see a proposal to turn the question mark into a keyword.
Oh, yes.
This is a pretty long discussion as far as Go issues go, right?
Mm-hmm.
With many related proposals, including a lot in Go 2. And it speaks to something which I think is not super important. So I would love to keep like the discussion about it pretty short. But it's about reducing error handling boilerplate. Basically, instead of doing like if is different than nil, you just do question mark, right?
Yeah.
Very similar to how you have in Rust, like question mark instead of unwrap, or in many other languages.
Mm-hmm.
So, a function that like looks like, copy file, where you do something open, something create, and copy, and then close. And for each one, you need to check the errors. You just do OS open SRC, then question mark instead of different from nil. And if you return the error even like one level up, it's very, very short. It's just call the function, question mark. That's it.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
When I first read the proposal, I read the entire proposal, not all the comments. I read the entire proposal first. When I first saw it about 2 weeks ago, I had mixed feelings about it. There are a couple things I like about it. But like I said, mixed feelings, so I wasn't sure. I have since decided I don't like it. And so I'm in good company, along with 438 other people who have downvoted it, compared to the 168 who have upvoted it. I don't think it solves a problem that's worth solving. And the way it solves it, I think, is actually worse. So, like, in general, I think that this is to help newcomers to the language who feel like their verbosity is a detriment. And there certainly are times where I think it is, and this would solve some of those cases. But in general, I think it adds something that's less readable and easier to miss and to appease the wrong people. Like, it's not going to help expert Go developers who've decided that they're okay with the long form error handling. It's not really going to help them. It's going to help the newbies by making the language more complicated. So I feel like it's kind of solving the wrong problem in the wrong way. However, I didn't like generics at first, and I've come to like them. So I do reserve the right to change my mind if this gets adopted and I play with it for a while, and I may change my mind.
There's a lot of comments here, like a lot of comments here. The cost of generating code, like writing and or generating it, is very low. It was always low. It was never the thing to optimize for, but now it's lower than ever, right? With the language server getting better and AI completion becoming faster and cheaper. And so that's definitely not the thing to optimize for. So it's not for people who want to write Go code and like make them faster, like reduce boilerplate. Now, when you say reduce boilerplate, it sort of implies that without the boilerplate, it's as understandable. And to me, I'm not like 100% sure how I would feel about reading code that looks like this, because I haven't read a lot of code that looks like this. But when I tried to read Rust, where you can do error handling like unwrap with question mark, it wasn't nicer. Like, it was harder to understand overall. It was fewer characters, fewer symbols on the screen, but they were describing a pretty complicated thing, right? Because the normal flow, that's never hard to read. People wouldn't call like calling a function, opening and closing the parentheses, boilerplate that you don't need, that's overcomplicated, right? Because you sort of want to say, I'm calling a thing here. This is how I communicate it. Even though theoretically we could eliminate the open parentheses, close parentheses if you don't pass any arguments or something like that. So it doesn't make it more readable for me. And it also, again, does a thing that I really like that Go doesn't usually do, which is 2 possible ways to do one thing. Because this is not in place of, getting an error and seeing how it looks. The only thing it actually does is reduce one line, right? That's basically it. You call a function and you have to get the error. And then if the error is different from nil, you do something.
I think if you have a function that calls a bunch of other functions that only return an error, this would improve readability in that case. And so that's kind of their first example here, one of the first examples here, right? They have this run function that calls start, ? Wait, ? Return nil. That's actually probably easier to read than error : equals start. If error does not equal nil, return error. Error equals wait. If error does not equal nil, return nil. So in that particular example, I do believe that the ? Syntax improves readability just because you can see exactly this function calls start and it calls wait and then it's done. If there's an error, it returns it. So I do see an argument for improved readability in very specific circumstances. But if you have a function that's more like a real life function where sometimes you call a function that returns 3 things, one of which is an error, then other times it calls something that's only an error, and other times it calls something that has no error value at all, and you have these all intermixed together, then you have to go hunting for, is there a question mark there, and should there be one, and you have to check the function signature or rely on your static analysis tools on your IDE or whatever to tell you that you're actually checking errors that should be checked. Yeah. I think that makes it harder to read in real life sort of situations.
To be fair, by the way, this is literally just reducing the boilerplate. It's not as loaded as the question mark is in other languages like Rust. Like it doesn't do a whole lot of things. It's inspired by Rust,
right.
But it's only at the end, and it only it literally replaces the get the error and check if it's different from nil, right? Like get a value, check if it's different from
nil. And it conditionally instantiates a magic variable, which is the thing I hate the most about this proposal, actually. So if your question mark is followed by a code block, so you want to do your own error handling, then it magically instantiates a locally scoped error variable to which it's the only time Go ever does that. I hate it. I think that particular aspect could be fixed. You could just put a parentheses error, whatever, if you want. But yeah, it's not nearly as magical as in Rust, but it's still magical enough to not feel like Go to me.
Yeah, there are some other nits and discussion and like ways this discussion could go. Do we need a block form? And is the question mark a good thing to use? Because some languages, in Rust is used for error handling, but in TypeScript is used to represent like non-null in object destructuring. So maybe use a keyword like try or catch or guard or like something that indicates that instead of question mark. The main observation I think I have from this discussion is that it's very, very, very long for something that's not super important. And I'd be okay if it got merged, and I'd be okay if it didn't got merged. Like I imagine it being a 5-minute update in, like if it did get merged, it would be in my next Go meetup. Like in GopherCon, there isn't going to be a talk all about the new question mark decorator because there isn't a new question mark operator because there isn't anything to say about it. It's just like, oh, you remember how you had to check errors? Now you just do question mark. It does the same. It's very, very simple. But yeah, I'm actually against it as well. So now we're minus 440. Maybe I tipped the scale enough. Maybe there's some magic number that if you get to the number of downvotes.
So what do you think? What's your prediction? Is this going to get merged?
Never.
I don't think it is.
Never.
It's a good discussion. It's interesting, but I hope it does. We'll see.
I think it's interesting to challenge like very basic things in the language here and there, but it might be very basic. I might be misunderstanding, but I think there are way more important things to resolve. Like it would help more people to localize the Go website to a different language, right? Than to continue bickering about the error handling. The error handling is fine.
Speaking of more important things.
Yes.
So he also wrote another proposal that I actually do like. It's for a new package called Sync V2. You ever use the Sync package?
Of course. I do single flight and mutexes and
yeah, you use mutexes. I'll bet you use Weight Group.
Of course.
And do you use SyncMap?
No.
Yeah, because it's ugly.
I don't remember why, but I always use a different thing.
So SyncMap is annoying because you have to. It was written long ago, back in the dark ages, before generics. So you have to convert everything. You read something.
Yeah, interface.
You have to do a type conversion and everything. So anyway, the proposal is to add a new Sync v2 package, which has generics-based map and a few other tweaks too. But I think the generics-based map is the big one. So I'm actually looking forward to this. I think I would probably use a sync map all the time if I could tie specific types to it, which you can with this proposed version.
I really like how we're building on his previous things. Like listeners or people who follow the language might remember that there was a big watershed moment where we released the first V2 package in the standard library, right? Rand V2. And Ian here saying, hey, this has been successful. Let's add another V2 package. We can fix things in the standard library. That's fine. Generally, obviously, I like the improvement. Specifically, I'm sort of worried about this trend of let's make another V2. The previous V2 was very, very justified. Do you remember why they released a Rand V2?
I don't remember specifically. I mean, the old Rand API was just terrible.
So it was the API, but it was also security. It had a generator that had like a shitty seed or something like that, and you couldn't change it because it would be breaking.
Yeah, right.
And while I very much like this API, I have a question. Why put it in the standard library? Like, why can't I can just use a package, right?
Surely you can, and many people do. I
so
feel like
why add another thing to the standard library?
Well, I think some reasons I can think of. It's already there for one, but in a version in a format that's probably not very usable. So replacing it with a usable version is a nice thing to do. I think the main arguments for putting it in the standard library are to get a standardized good implementation. Although not all things in the standard library are good implementations. JSON is a good example. Although that's hopefully changing with a new V2 coming up before too long as well. And in some cases, and I don't know if this applies.
So let me ask you another thing.
Yeah.
Why not add these new generic maps to the original package?
You could, but then you'd need to have two different versions of the same.
Map and I don't know, map of, right?
I think that gets confusing. A lot more confusing than a V2 than a package name. But I could see an argument for it. Some of these things have been added. There are, if I'm not mistaken, let me double check. But I believe there are. Yeah, there are some generic functions in the sync package that were added later, like once value and once values. So I don't know that those need to change. If the map is the big thing, you could add a generic map or something. I don't know what you call it.
This proposal is still doesn't have anybody assigned, doesn't have a label, doesn't have anything. So it's a good time. It's a good early time to add your opinion. Obviously, I really like the new API. I'm just a bit wary about what V2 packages in the standard library will be used for. Because this is sort of a slippery slope, right? Can you imagine sync V8 in the standard library of a language? What is that? How does that make you feel?
That one finally supports enums and the new error handling syntax.
Yeah. And the new REPL. Actually, Sync V2 just introduces a V2, Sync V8 actually introduces a V8 JavaScript engine inside the standard library. So cool. One proposal about error handling and one proposal about a new Sync V2 package. One actually will improve the lives of Go developers, and one got 800 comments. Guess which is which?
Well, I think that pretty well wraps us up for the news for the week. There's a lot more we could be talking about, but we ramble a lot. So I hope you can wait till next week to hear some of our backlog items. Stick around for a little bit of an update on some of our analytics, Patreon members, and then we'll round it out with a quick lightning round after the break. As we mentioned at the top of the show, this show is supported by our listeners. If you'd like to help support the show, you can join us on Patreon. And I do want to do a big shout out to Jamie, who joined us as a Patreon supporter at the $10 level, which we don't even ask for. We asked for $8. So thanks for the extra 25%, Jamie. We also got a great Patreon comment from Jose, who says, "Hi, I really really like your content and the upbeat mood. I'm a front-end developer using React and TypeScript. I'm going to do a little bit of back-end with Kotlin, not his favorite apparently, and is looking to change. Apart from Go, he's learning OCaml and HTMX and other esoteric stuff. Nice t-shirt, by the way. So you're going to want to get a t-shirt too, because it is a nice t-shirt. So for all of that, to join us on Patreon, to get a t-shirt, to get a mug, head over to cupago.dev.
And to hate on Kotlin. There's a dedicated hate for Kotlin page.
You can also join us, of course, on the Gopher Slack, where we have just casual chat about Go mostly. You can post links there to your favorite blog about Go over the week. We might mention it on the show. That's on the Gopher Slack in the Cup of Go channel, kebab case, cup-o-go. What else? What am I missing, Shai? Have I covered all the bases?
So almost all of them. We have a live episode soon.
Oh, yes. Can't forget that.
Which is very, very exciting. We have published 96 episodes so far. The one you're listening to right now should be the 97th. So in 3 episodes from what you're listening right now, we're going to do a live episode. We're not 100% sure what the details are going to be yet. Like where's the
time and place,
and how we're going to record it exactly. But we know the time. It's February 13th at 1800 UTC, 6 p.m. UTC. We thought it would be good, like late enough in Europe, so the Americans could join as well. Like if they want to join in the morning, and it's a Thursday, so like towards the end of the week. If
you're in India or Australia, we're sorry, we can't accommodate everybody.
Yeah. Although it's not that late. India is kind of rough. It's 3.5 hours. Did you know that? Delhi time has extra 30 minutes. Always made things hard when I needed to set up like design meetings with my India team.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is UTC. It's time zone. It's a very easy time zone to understand. Just open your log editor right now. Look at the logs and do that calculation relatively. So we're planning the Go 124 release party, although we don't know if it's going to get released by then. If you want to help it get released by then, go install the RC2 candidate, right? And try to find the bugs. Looking, by the way, at our podcast dashboard, I can't help but notice another almost round number.
Mm-hmm. Which number is that? Do we have 6 listeners now?
All time. Actually, we have 559 subscribers. But all-time downloads, we are almost at 100,000. I wonder how much.
You know what? When we started this podcast, I never would have guessed we would even get close to that number.
Yeah, no way, man. So thanks a lot to y'all for like listening and downloading. These numbers are like generally finicky, right? They don't mean a lot normally, and
they're like the vanity metrics of vanity metrics.
Yeah, but it's still nice because I know that there are people who actually listen, right? Because people talk to me about the show. So
yeah.
It's very nice. And if you want to help us reach that 100K, please do share the show with your friends, co-workers, family members, etc., co-students. Just spread the show around. We're coming up on a few exciting milestones here with 100 episodes and 100,000 downloads, which is pretty amazing.
Pretty cool.
That's it for our ad break.
Let's jump into a quick lightning round and wrap the show up.
For sure. Lightning round.
All right. First off on the lightning round, I found a tool that I think is kind of cool. It's from our friends over at Charm Bracelet, who make a lot of cool, interesting things. It's called VHS. Do you know what VHS is, Shai? Are you old
tapes.
enough to know what that is? Yeah. Back before DVDs, back before streaming, we used VHS tapes to watch videos, right? Mm-hmm. So what VHS does is it's a little sort of language and tool to build animated GIFs of console things. So if you have a little demo that you want to, show, here's how you compile a program, or here's how you do something that would be done on the console, it helps you generate these animated GIFs for that you can then upload to your social media or whatever and look really spiffy. So that's kind of a cool tool. That's my pick for the week.
Nice. So VHS because you record it.
Yeah.
Cool. And there's a new release this week, which is why you mentioned it, right?
Which is why I mentioned it. Yes.
Oh, all the Charm Bracelet stuff always looks so nice. It makes me want to build like terminal UIs. Well, my thing for the lightning round is OpenAI Go. There's an official SDK for OpenAI API for Go from OpenAI called, boringly enough, OpenAI-Go. So if you're trying to do work with like LLM-ish applications, it's a release. It's currently in beta, so minor breaking changes may occur. And they're really trying to like do a full-on SDK with, documentation, a lot of documentation, and the files themselves look pretty good. Looks like a pretty well done SDK released by Stainless. I don't know if you know about them, but I think they're an API SDK company that OpenAI like bought or invested in, like a pretty new startup around the scene with a spiffy site and spiffy SDKs. So if you're doing Go stuff with AI, with OpenAI specifically, now you have an official SDK and you don't have to use some weird ass library.
So my big question here is there a REST API for it so that I can use OpenAPI Go with OpenAI Go?
Ooh. I think you can. I think that's how they generated this SDK, actually. Although it might be like a beautifully handcrafted. It seems like the top contributor is actually
Come on, it was written by ChatGPT.
Yeah, 100%. One other thing I wanted to bring to the lightning round, and it's a lightning round pick not because it's not interesting, but because it's not Go, is Dreams of Code. Elliot, who was on the show, released a new YouTube video, which I really, really liked, which is all about setting up deployment to a VPS, to a server, without Docker. Can you even imagine just your binary being naked on a server? And it really showcases, other than very interesting like DevOps stuff, the up level in Elliot's like editing skills and whatever. This is like legitimately a short movie, a short film about deploying to VPSs.
I wonder if you wrote it using VHS.
I guess you'll have to watch.
I'll have to watch and see.
Link in the show notes.
I think that wraps it up for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Program exited.